Why does all life ultimately lead to death? Even the Earth and the universe cannot escape this fate. What force governs all of this? This is the second law of thermodynamics, the law of entropy. In 1865, German physicist Clausius, while studying heat transfer, introduced the concept of entropy. He discovered that in an isolated system, heat always flows from a hotter object to a cooler one. This transfer doesn't represent the disappearance of energy, but rather a shift from a highly concentrated, ordered state of energy to a more dispersed and disordered state. This is entropy increase, and it lies at the core of the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy is a measure of disorder. It describes the degree of energy, dispersion, and disarray within a system. Over time, entropy in an isolated system continuously increases, order decays, and chaos spreads. This process is irreversible. Once it happens, there's no going back. This applies not just to thermodynamics, but also reveals the ultimate fate of the universe. From the perspective of the universe, the law of entropy increase determines its final destiny. Around 13.8 billion years ago, the Big Bang released an unimaginable amount of energy, forming the first fundamental particles. Over time, these particles, under the influence of gravity, began to cluster, forming stars, galaxies, and star clusters. The universe began to grow more complex and diverse, but at the same time, entropy continued to rise. Every time a star burns, every supernova explosion, every black hole devouring matter, it all represents a transition of ordered energy into a more chaotic form. This is not just the restructuring of matter, but an increase in entropy. The birth of stars is essentially the universe's attempt to fight entropy. They gather hydrogen and helium atoms together, and through nuclear fusion, release enormous amounts of energy. This energy spreads in the form of light and heat, creating the conditions for the formation of planetary systems and the emergence of life. However, this ordered creation comes at the cost of greater chaos on a larger scale. When a star runs out of fuel, nuclear fusion stops, and it collapses into a white dwarf, a neutron star, or it falls completely into a black hole. This is the inevitable result of the law of entropy, increase the endpoint of disarray after energy depletion. Not just stars, but entire galaxies and the universe itself are undergoing this process. As time passes, the distance between galaxies will continue to grow. Stars will gradually burn out, and black holes will slowly evaporate. Eventually, when the entropy of the universe reaches its maximum, all energy differentials will vanish, and the structure of matter will completely disintegrate. At that point, even time will lose its meaning. However, life is a special case. It seems to challenge this irreversible law. The physicist Schrödinger once said that the purpose of life is to resist the law of entropy increase. Life thrives on negative entropy, meaning it sustains its structure and function by continually absorbing low entropy energy from the outside world, such as food, sunlight, or chemical substances, to counteract the natural trend toward chaos. From cell division to brain activity, from the growth of trees to human cultural creation, all are efforts to delay the onset of disorder. Yet, this struggle is ultimately temporary. Over time, cells age, organs fail, and DNA gets damaged. Life ultimately cannot continue to resist the erosion of entropy. Just like a burning candle, it may briefly light up the darkness, but in the end, it will burn out. This is the unavoidable fate of all life. Human society is no exception. From the earliest tribes to modern cities, from simple agriculture to complex industrial societies, we constantly build order, trying to create a relatively stable space for survival in the midst of nature's chaos. However, history has proven that even the mightiest civilizations will eventually collapse, and even the most prosperous cities will be devoured by time. Nevertheless, we don't need to despair because of this. It's precisely because we know everything will eventually end that we learn to cherish each moment. It's because we recognize the inevitability of chaos that we yearn to create order and beauty. The law of entropy increase helps us understand that the meaning of life is not in fighting against the inevitable outcome, but in using this brief and precious time to create more good for ourselves and others, leaving behind shining traces or warm memories. Even in the face of the irreversible fate of the universe, we still have the power to choose how to live our lives. Perhaps it is this very process of struggling against chaos that gives life its true meaning. It reminds us that, even in the face of the universe's ultimate destiny, we can still choose to burn with our own light and heat.